What's up, folks? Thanks for being here. Please take a second to hit subscribe, hit thumbs up, hit the share button, all that good stuff. Massive pipeline attack, and you are not being told everything about it. Big surprise. I know, shocking. You were like, the mainstream media's not giving it all to us? They're not giving us every single detail? How could that be? But yeah, so we're going to get into this. I'm going to get into several stories today, but we'll start off with this massive pipeline attack on the Nord Stream 2, which the United States was, we wanted to do anything and everything to stop this, to make sure this didn't happen. And here's the thing. The proxy war is about far more than just the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. For those who haven't been following it, that's the pipeline that it costs billions of dollars. I don't know the exact amount, but billions of dollars. Pipeline between Russia, which has all the energy, right? Energy is a euphemism for planetary death fluid. So they have all the planetary death fluid, and Europe's like, we would like all the planetary death fluid. So they made this pipeline. I'm explaining this in very easy terms. They made a massive pipeline. It was about to start between them and Germany and France were some of the big ones. And even before this, Europe, the EU nations got 40% of their energy. It sounds like someone's giving you like fucking monster drinks or like it's a Red Bull or some shit, like a pipeline with Red Bull coming out of it, but energy. But they got 40% from Russia to begin with. And so the pipeline kind of represented everything that the U.S. fears, which is we think we own the world, right? Our U.S. government, our ruling class thinks they own the fucking globe. The globe is theirs. And so to have Russia and China working and cooperating with other countries like Germany and France and India and Pakistan and coming together and saying, hey, it's actually easier for us to get our energy from Russia because it's closer to us, or we can have a pipeline straight here, or whatever. Like all that shit terrified the United States. And so terrified because we're losing hegemony. We're losing ownership of the world. So the pipeline was kind of the mascot of that. It's far bigger than that. Obviously, the rise of China is far bigger than this one pipeline between Russia and the EU. But it was the mascot. If there were mascots for fucking proxy wars, it'd be Pipey the Pipeline, all right? It represented everything the U.S. feared in terms of global cooperation outside of American influence. So here's what just happened to the pipeline, which had not started operating. The U.S., this proxy war kicked off right at the time that the pipeline was very close. It was finished, essentially, and it was going to begin pumping energy to the EU nations. So this is from the New York Times, but I'll show you what the New York Times is not telling you in a minute. Pipeline breaks look deliberate. Yeah, you think multiple. By the way, it's multiple at once. Pipelines don't explode in multiple places at once by accident, usually. Pipeline breaks look deliberate, Europeans say, exposing vulnerability. The leaks in the Nord Stream under the Baltic Sea heightened fears of shortages because of the clash with Russia and showed how vital infrastructure could be at risk. And hilariously, a lot of the propaganda has been that, Russia did this to themselves. They did this to their own fucking pipeline. And I don't know the reason they're giving for why Russia would do this to their own pipeline. I guess they're trying to claim this is a false flag, right? Russia blew up their own pipeline to try and blame the United States, et cetera, et cetera. But what all those media outlets are skipping over, I think, or almost all of them, is that Biden actually admitted that the United States would essentially do this. I mean, first of all, I don't think Russia's got a lot on its plate. I don't think Russians are throwing on a scuba tank and diving down and blowing up their own pipelines that it costs billions of dollars to make. That just seems like idiocy. I mean, and even if this was a Russian false flag, what would they get out of it? Like, what would they be like? Aha, we did it. Like, whereas the United States clearly get something out of stopping the pipeline they've wanted to stop. Like, anyway, so here's Biden from several months ago. This is before the Russian invasion began. And just look at how hard Biden is working to try and make his like face work, like his face with his words, and trying to, and I don't know if it's more the plastic surgery or it's the fucking dementia pills or whatever it is. There's just so much going on in his skull to try and make all the things. It's like an animatronic, like when like the days of like the first Jurassic Park, they did partial animatronics on some of the shots where it was like, so the eyes of the dinosaur like operated separately from, and they would do that with humans back in like the 80s and stuff, whenever they had a robot human, and like the mouth always one eye would be going that way and one eye would go this way. And that's what Biden looks like. It's like there's like 7 people trying to control different parts of his face. Just like, oh, I got this eye. And there's a guy with a lever just like, ah! And he's like, you're supposed to do the eyes together. Well, I'm trying. And yeah, it's just a lot going on in his face as he tries to figure out an answer to any question. But all right, here we go.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
And he's got his little smirk and he did the George W. Bush like eyebrow thing. I don't think I can do with that says like, I'm fucking up the world right here. That's the George W. Bush eyebrow he just did. But here's the thing. If he just admitted that the U.S. will and has a way to stop the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and will do it. That's what he admitted before the invasion began. And if he were talking about a legitimate way, like not a terrorist act, which is what this is. I mean, bombing a pipeline is a terrorist act. Unless you're trying to stop climate change, and then I'm all for it. But I should go back on my word there. It's not. I don't want to call it a terrorist act because I absolutely believe that damage to property is different than damage to humans, and I think that is a careful discussion that should be had. However, in this case, you've got 2 nuclear countries going at each other. So when you bomb their pipeline, you are putting this world closer to a fucking nuclear Armageddon. So you're putting us in a situation of terror. Absolutely. But anyway, what I was going to say is if he, in that response, had a legit way of, like a either legal way or a non-holy fucking shit way to stop the pipeline, he would have said it. Like, he would have said, oh, well, we, have an agreement with Germany that they won't go forward without our, like, if there was something that sounded even remotely like okay to say in front of news cameras, he would have fucking said it. But instead, he does his little like fucking half a smirk and the eyes going weird and but you can tell he's talking not an okay way of stopping that pipeline, but a way of doing it, which would mean exploding it. So here he is revealing without revealing that the U.S. is more than willing to blow up that pipeline and put all of us at risk of nuclear Armageddon. There's plenty of blame to go around in terms of putting these 2 nuclear countries at the fucking brink of this. The U.S. helped create this situation going back to the 2014 Maidan coup. 15,000 people were killed before the Russian invasion, yet we didn't call that a war for some reason. 15,000 Russians killed in the Donbass region. We didn't call that a war. The war hadn't started yet. That was the warm-up. That was, like you see the guys in the batting, the warm-up circle, stretching their hammies out in the batting cage and shit. That's all that was. That was 15,000 people killed in Donbass by fucking Nazis. And that was all that. That wasn't the war yet. That was just the stretch and gotta get the elbow back. All right. That didn't count as war. It only became a war when Russia invaded Ukraine, which, again, I'm also opposed to. However, it doesn't matter. I can say that as much as I want. People just go, he's supporting Russia. I'm like, no, I'm fucking supporting the truth. Douche canoe. But here he is. I mean, just straight up admitting that the U.S. would do something such as bomb the pipeline.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it. Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine.
Look how hard he has to work to just explain what invade means. He's like, if Russia invades, it's like each word is being typed into his head by some guy who doesn't have that great typing skills. He's like, if Russia invades, which means what? Short circuit. Anyway, so on top of Biden's admission and Victoria Nuland's admission that essentially that the U.S. would attack this pipeline. And by the way, the harm of this can't be overstated, because you could have, if this is now game on in terms of attacking everyone's pipelines, you could have fucking the power cut off in all of Europe, in fucking pipelines across the Atlantic just blown up, filling the Atlantic with oil. Like, you could have all kinds of crazy shit going on if this is the new game we're playing. It gets pretty fucked. And of course, all of that puts us closer to nuclear war. But so on top of Biden saying that, and on top of Victoria Nuland, a U.S. diplomat who basically helped manufacture she put in the new government in Ukraine after the coup. She helped manufacture the coup in 2014. Anyway, on top of those two, here is a Polish EU parliament member responding to the Nord Stream explosion saying, "Thank you, USA." Also admitting that the United States did this. Former Polish minister and member of the European Parliament, Radoslaw Sikorski, thanked the U.S. for the Nord Stream 2 explosions, kicking off a public diplomatic quarrel. And here he is. Thank you, USA. I mean, it's pretty fucking incredible. It's like none of these people are all just sociopaths, and they seem to have no problem with the fact that that people are dying, that they're using Ukrainians as cannon fodder for all this. None of it matters. Just full on sociopaths. I mean, truly incredible. And of course, all of this takes away from where we should be moving as a race, right? As humanity, we should all be working even more together to deal with the climate crisis, to deal with the environmental catastrophe, even outside of the climate crisis. Even outside of climate crisis, we have we're cutting down all the trees, filling the oceans with plastic, killing all the animals. We've killed 50% of all land animals over the past 40 years. All of that's outside of just climate crisis. So these things are crucial. These are the times we should be getting together and being like, wow, we got to work on this together. And instead, you have a proxy war that the U.S. has carefully manufactured. Russia, of course, going for it as well, falling for the bait or whatever you want to call it. And they're using Ukrainians as fucking cannon fodder and funding and arming fucking Nazis. Now, of course, you don't know whether it was the U.S. who did this, or it could have been Ukrainian soldiers with U.S., weaponry. I imagine it takes some impressive know-how and weaponry to get down to the bottom of the Baltic and set whatever charges need to be set to cause this kind of catastrophe. But so I kind of don't picture the Ukrainian Nazis doing the, strapping on their snorkels and going down there. I don't know if there's, I do Nazis have snorkels? Are there snorkels with little swastikas on them? Because that's fucking terrifying. Sea Nazis are, that's scary, man. Sea Nazis is where it gets too weird. But yeah, so you got Biden admitting that the U.S. would destroy this pipeline if push came to shove. You got Victoria Nuland admitting it, and you got a fucking Polish member of EU Parliament saying thanks USA for blowing up the pipeline. Here's the thing. Since I'm opposed to fossil fuels, I'd be all for stopping these pipelines if it was not part of a fucking proxy war, if it was not part of putting us on the brink of nuclear Armageddon. What do the atomic scientists say? We have 100 seconds to midnight. Midnight being nuclear annihilation, nuclear winter. So we got 100 seconds on the nuclear clock, which Albert Einstein founded. And I feel like he knew some shit. Like he knew some things. But staying on the topic of Russia for a moment, Putin just played his. This really is a chess game. Except it's kind of like a chess game, except with each one is kind of like a little fuck you. I don't know if that's how chess players view it, but with each one it's like, haha, fuck you. Oh, but fuck you. Oh, but fuck you. Putin just granted Russian citizenship to Edward Snowden, which I love as a fuck you. I mean, as a fuck you, that's beautiful. That's like, because not only is the U.S. dying, of course, to get, shit, it's freezing now. Because not only is the U.S. dying to get Edward Snowden back so that the United States can torture him, as they're doing with the UK's help to Julian Assange. More on Assange in a minute. But the U.S. wants to have him back to torture him. But Edward Snowden, like Assange, represents everything that's wrong with the United States. I don't mean they're what's wrong with it. I mean, they revealed everything that's wrong with the United States. Edward Snowden revealed that we are some of the most surveilled people on earth, Americans are, by our own government, even as our own government claims that they're not invading our privacy. Here they are surveilling fucking everything. And they tried to get Snowden, for those of you who didn't follow the story back then, close enough, he did not try and end up in Russia. He was trying to go to, it was either Cuba or Ecuador or somewhere, and the flight from Hong Kong had a layover in Russia. So he lands in Russia, and then the U.S. stopped him from going any further because they basically were gonna pull out of the sky, threaten to shoot down any plane that they thought had him on it. And so he became stuck in Russia. And now Putin is in the position of having this guy there that is viewed as an enemy of the state to the United States. But what did he do? All he did is reveal the truth to us. All he did is reveal what our government is fucking doing to us. Like, we should view him as a hero. There should be monuments to these fucking guys. And instead, the U.S. wants to torture him the same way they did to Chelsea Manning, the same way they're doing to Julian Assange, the same way they did on a much smaller scale to John Kiriakou, 2 years in prison for revealing that our CIA tortures people against the Geneva Convention. And then Kyriakou goes to prison for revealing the torture. And Gina Haspel, one of the overseers of the torture, the torturer in chief, she becomes head of the CIA. So that shows you what the U.S. respects. It respects fucking thugs. It respects fucking mafia. That's what we are, and that's the way they behave. And anybody who reveals their secrets, most of their secrets are straight up crimes, or many of them are. So reveals their crimes, reveals their war crimes, reveals their murders like Chelsea Manning did, which is what they're going after Assange for. Assange had created a site that allowed someone like Chelsea Manning to leak these documents, leak this information without it being known who leaked it. Chelsea Manning ultimately revealed herself accidentally that she had done it. But if she had not done that, if she had not accidentally revealed who leaked the Iraq war logs and everything, then she would not have been caught, because that's how WikiLeaks worked. The whole point of WikiLeaks was that they don't even know where the information is coming from. So the U.S. saw Assange and Snowden as the biggest threat in the fucking world. These are people that can reveal our crimes. Speaking for the ruling class, these are people that can reveal their crimes and did reveal their crimes. And so for that, you've got Assange tortured for 10 years in prison, still in prison. You got Chelsea Manning tortured for multiple years. And you got Edward Snowden would be tortured if he weren't in Russia. So here Putin gets a nice royal fuck you to the U.S. by giving Snowden citizenship. And by the way, this does not mean Putin's some kind of superhero. He's just playing the fucking cards he's got. He also has arrested, what's her name? Brittany Griner or something like that. The fucking basketball player, U.S. basketball player, because she had like a baggie of CBD oil or whatever the fuck, putting her in prison. Now, that is a total fucking oligarch bullshit. We're going to arrest your people and put them in prison kind of move. So don't celebrate that shit. Anyway, this is just oligarchs going trying to get each other's goat. But I'm, if it improves things for Snowden, then I'm all for it, because that guy, honestly, there should be statues to him, statues to Assange, statues to fucking Chelsea Manning. Like, those are the statues we need, not the ones we have of fucking generals from the 1800s chasing after black people on horseback. That is, can we please replace all the fucking racist shitbags with statues of Assange, Snowden, and Chelsea Manning? I'd be all for that. Instead, it's just fucking guys from the fucking 17 and 1800s who were just straight up white supremacist assholes. But yes. All right. So moving on to a next topic about how our stock market's collapsing. And by the way, folks, in about 10 to 15 minutes, this will go to just rumble.com/Lee Camp. It's on multiple platforms right now. Soon, in about 10 to 15 minutes, it will just be at rumble.com/Lee Camp. The reason I had to do that and create that page was because my other page, my main YouTube page, was banned globally. Over 1,000 videos banned globally. And I have no choice but to be at Rumble as my main channel now. So please go over and start watching there. It's free to watch there. There's no charge or anything. And also, if you want to help make sure this show keeps going, become a member at leecamp.net. There's all kinds of exclusive content. You get exclusive articles almost every week. You get exclusive videos every Friday. So join at leecamp.net if you have a second. All right. So our stock market is collapsing, which is, fun. That's fun. Don't you love when you create a proxy war with another country and then it has ramifications on yourself? Our sanctions, our economic sanctions have completely backfired. So this is from CNBC, And there's a lot that I find hilarious about this and the way they cover it, the way they talk about our stock market. Anyway, you'll see.
If you have felt some pain as stocks sold off, you're not alone. Stock market losses this year have cut American wealth by nearly $10 trillion.
Okay, hold on for a second. Now, you hear that sentence, and if you're an average American, and I think a lot of average Americans probably watch this stuff. It's not just rich people watching CNBC. You watch that and you hear, oh my God, American wealth has been cut by $10 trillion. And by the way, these are unimaginable numbers. Like the example I often use is if you were to earn $40,000 a year after taxes, $40,000 a year, to make $1 trillion, you'd have to work for 25 million years. So get busy, get to work. So unimaginable numbers. But think about these words he's using. The wealth of Americans has been cut by $10 trillion. Now, first of all, think about the word wealth. Is the stock market wealth? So this goes to something that I've talked about a lot. There's a great book by Tan Lu called The Ponzi Factor. I am one of the only people who covered it. I don't think you will see it on even other independent media talking heads, as we're called. If so, then I apologize. But the stock market in general, all of it nowadays is a Ponzi scheme. It is not what people think about when we think about stock. When we think about stock, I think most people, and I did until a couple of years ago, think, oh, you invest in a company, not a country, although that maybe that too. But you invest in a company. You give them a little money to that company. Then you own a little bit of their stock. As they make money, they give you dividends, part of their money they made. Now, dividends don't exist that much anymore. Yes, there's some here and there, but it's really a tiny factor in the stock market. The amount of money changing hands, the dividends are almost inconsequential. So instead, what almost everybody is doing that invests in the stock market, puts money in the stock market, is you're giving money to buy a little stock, and you get money when you sell that stock to someone who thinks it's worth it to buy that stock, which means you only make money if you get someone else to buy it at a higher amount, which is the definition of a fucking Ponzi scheme. That's like the SEC own definition of a Ponzi scheme is you buy into something and you only make money if people keep buying in and want to buy your funds from you or whatever, keep buying in. And the final factor of a Ponzi scheme is you're being lied to. Well, these companies lie all the time about their worth, about what they foresee for the future. There's just massive. If we have time, I'm going to get to a big company that just was caught lying massively to investors and was fined hundreds of millions of dollars for it. It's all the time these people are lying to, they're lying to investors. They're lying. Think about how much lying Facebook has done over to us, to the government, to everyone over the past 4 years. Facebook, it was revealed, was lying about the amount of time that people watch videos because advertisers want to think people are watching videos. So they told them they're watching 30 seconds. They're watching like 3 seconds. Like that shit goes on all the time. That's not the exception. That is how this shit works. It is a fucking scam game, a con game. And that's the definition of a Ponzi scheme. So when they say the wealth in the stock market is not wealth. The stock market is an imaginary. It's an abstraction. Wealth would be if you had a handful of sandwiches and everybody was hungry. You've got a lot of wealth there. But in terms of the stock market, you only get that wealth once you sell that stock. And then you get the dollars. And yes, we can argue dollars are fake too. But we live in a society now where dollars are pretty much accepted everywhere. So we'll pretend those are real for the moment. So you only get those dollars after you sell it. Meaning when you just hold something that says Google stock, you don't have anything. And in fact, in the fine print, it says that if you went to Google and said, I want money for my stock, they're obligated to give you something like 1/10 of a cent for your entire stock. I have $800 worth of stock. And they're like, here's 1/10 of a cent. So anyway, you don't really have wealth until you sell it. Now, one of the ways that I think that we could make a difference is by is by changing the way we talk about it. So you don't have to talk about it as dollars. You could say, so you could say Jeff Bezos, if he's rich with stock, you could say Jeff Bezos is full of padoodles, and then when he sells it, all right, now he has dollars. Anyway, this is implying that all the stock market is wealth. It is not. But then, more importantly, this guy just said, Americans have lost $10 trillion in wealth. Now, what Americans do you think he's talking about? It's almost entirely the rich, because the stock market, something like 80% or more of the stock market is owned by the top 10%. And most of that is owned by the 1%. But it is so when he says $10 trillion has been lost, the vast majority of that has been lost by the rich. So to sit here and go, oh my God, Americans have really suffered. Well, no, most Americans have not suffered from this. Now, there are some that are suffering from their mutual funds that have stuff invested in these, which probably people shouldn't. But again, this is him acting like every American is a rich American, which is bullshit.
Robert Frank has some more on that for us this morning. Hey, Robert.
Good morning, Carl. Well, from 401ks to family offices, shareholders have lost trillions in dollars of wealth this year.
You notice he wants to highlight 401ks because he wants to act like mostly average Americans have lost this money. In a minute, they actually admit that a large percentage of it was in the 1%, but they kind of gloss over it for a second.
From those market declines, new data from the Federal Reserve showing that the value of Americans' holdings of corporate equities and mutual fund shares falling by $9.2 trillion. That's as of July.
Now, look at this fact. $8 trillion has been lost by the top 10%. So of this $10 trillion lost by Americans, $8 trillion was the top 10%. $5 trillion of that was the top 1%. So when we sit here and we go, oh my God, the stock market's gone down, Americans are suffering. Most Americans are not suffering because of this. Rich Americans might be pissed because of this. So, this is a common lie that's done on your mainstream media, is to act like all of this rich people shit is all of us. That all of us are hurting as the rich people are hurting. And of course, rich people aren't hurting because let's say a rich person, let's say someone with $100 million loses $20 million. Do you think they're hurting now that they have $80 million? And of course, that's a huge loss, right? Oh my God, I lost $20 million, but they have $80 million. So the idea that they're hurting is bullshit. So when they sit here and talk about the pain, the hurting, $8 trillion of the $10 trillion in losses comes from the top 10% that are not hurting. They're not fucking hurting, all right?
First, you add in the declines since that time, probably brings it close to the $10 trillion mark. Now, the top, they have lost the most since they own the most stocks. The top 10% of Americans saw their stock wealth drop by over $8 trillion this year. The top 1% losing $5 trillion in stock wealth. That's about a 20% drop in keeping with the market. Rising home prices have helped a bit, but not nearly enough to.
She says rising home prices have helped a bit. Yeah, while people are struggling to be able to own a home, to be able to have, the home prices have gone fucking nuts. And no one can afford to have a home anymore. And you have massive wealth management funds, asset management funds like BlackRock, which is one of the largest stakeholders of Blackstone, which is the largest single home owner. And so you have a bunch of, groups like that running around buying up homes so that they can rent them back to people and make money off of harming people's lives, basically.
Offset the stock wealth declines. Real estate holdings up $3 trillion this year. That's less than a third the value of the stock losses. And the big question is when this negative wealth from stocks starts to affect the consumer spending of the wealthy.
But look at this, and he hasn't even. They have it on the screen, but they haven't even mentioned this. The wealth of the 10%, top 10%, went up $9 trillion during COVID. During the pandemic, this is called shock doctrine. The pandemic happens and they go, oh, this is a chance for us to just buy up everything, transfer wealth to the top. So you saw this massive influx of trillions of dollars to the richest Americans during the pandemic. And so on the screen there, wealth of the top 10% goes up $9 trillion. Well, you just told us about all the pain they're feeling because they lost $8 trillion. So you lose $8 trillion, but you gained $9 trillion. I don't think you're suffering. I don't think it's a lot of pain. Also, this guy's head is exploding out of his shirt collar. his head, he looks like one of those caricatures where they have them like the head just grows exponentially outside of the shirt collar. It's like, dude, why do you have to suffocate yourself like that, man? Anyway, just incredible to see NBC. But this is what our mainstream media does. This is kind of their job, is to act like each and every American is the rich. We are the same as the rich. We should want what the rich wants. When they're feeling pain, we're feeling pain. Oh, it hurts so much when the rich lose $1 trillion. It just aches in my bones to see Bezos's wealth go down a little. It's bullshit. Now, Americans are fucking hurting. Absolutely. But it's not because of that. It's not because corporate titans or stock has gone down. All right, so let's see. Actually, this is staying with CNBC. I thought this was a good thing to show right now, even though it's not. They posted this. Apparently, CNBC posted this 3-4 years ago, but still, the times have not changed enough for that to matter that it was 3-4 years ago. This is what CNBC, the news for the fucking shitbag rich, this is how they think you should be living as someone who monitors their budget closely. So the budget breakdown is of a 25-year-old who makes $100,000 a year. First of all, that's pretty fucking impressive. This is a 25-year-old making $100,000 a year. Nice. Dude, that dude is doing nice. All right, so making $100,000 a year, and this imaginary person, he or she is good with money. So, let's see, can I zoom in some on this? Whoa. So, typical monthly spending, $2,770. Health insurance, $270. That's actually an impressive healthcare plan nowadays to only spend $270 a month, which is sad that that's even a thing. Dining out, $250. Utilities, $195. Transportation, $130. That's pretty damn good for transportation. Cell phone, $40. Cell phone, $40. I have a cell phone and I don't even use like the data allowances. Like it is the lowest level plan that I think they let me have, and it's $100 a month. House cleaner, $30. Okay. Internet, $20. Rent, $825. $825 for this person's rent a month. In the United States, I remember this fact from a few years ago. So this is probably the same time this was posted. The cheapest rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in the United States was like Wichita, Kansas or something. And it was $600 a month. So apparently this graph is pretending this guy is 25 years old, makes $100,000 and lives in Wichita, Kansas. Because most other cities, $825 is not a rent for, is not enough of a rent for his or her own apartment. Now, if he's got 5 roommates, all right, good on you. Donations, $6.15. That's lovely that they think Americans are donating $600 a month. I think, considering we live in a sociopathic society that fucking rewards wealth and basically tells you not to help others, I don't think most people are donating $600 a month. Groceries, $400. $400 a month. Like, unless you're buying spam and shit, and that's it. Like, you get a spam and you get a bagel, and that's it for the month. $400 is not going to cover your groceries. When I first moved to New York, I was 21, 22 years old. I had essentially no money. I remember I paid $700 a month for my rent, and I shared a bunk bed. Luckily, the other guy was in the other part of the bunk bed. We didn't have to share the same mattress, but but I was on the top bunk. I had a roommate I didn't know on the bottom bunk. We were in like a closet, and it was $700 a month in New York City to have half a bunk bed. And I allotted myself, because I had so little money, I allotted myself $100 a month food budget. And that was in 2002, and I ate like nothing. Like, I ate like, it was like a piece of bologna. This was when I ate meat. I don't eat meat anymore. I had like a piece of bologna and like a piece of bread for dinner. And I completely fucked myself up. I was like sick and fucking dying and shit because I was living off a piece of bologna. But it was $100 a month living on bologna. So unless this fucking dude, and that was 2002 or something like that, unless this dude is living on bologna with $100,000 a year job, I don't think he's paying $400 a month for groceries. Anyway, this is a wildly bullshit chart, and this is how CNBC thinks you should be living. And someone else has a good point. What about your weed demand? There's no weed budget in here. There's no alcohol budget. There's no strip club budget. Honestly, there's a lot of things they're not calculating in this monthly spending, this bullshit monthly spending. Anyway, there you go. That's how CNBC thinks you should be living. All right, folks. Actually, let me say this last thing before we go to rumble.com/Lee Camp. And I'll put the link in here so you can just go straight there and be lazy and not have to actually click on the first video. You can just show up straight at the video. All right, so I just put the link straight to the Rumble video. You can go straight there, free to watch. Join us for the rest of the live stream. But I just want to say real quick, there are Assange events coming up to save Julian Assange, to get him out of prison, to continue the pressure on the U.S. The U.S. is, as you all know, torturing a fucking journalist, torturing a publisher. He is not in good health. They have fucking destroyed his life for 10 years now, or over 10 years. And there's and every charge that they acted like they had against him has fucking collapsed. Has fucking collapsed. They don't have anything. Even their main witness, their star witness, in the trial in Britain, has admitted that he made it up. He's a sociopath who also has been prosecuted for pedophilia and other things. And he admitted that he made up the charges against Assange. And the FBI, they knew that he made it up, but they used him anyway. So everything that they pretended to have against Assange has collapsed. And yet they keep him in prison, and they're threatening to extradite him to the U.S. to be tortured more. So this says DC rally. It's actually DC and London. And then maybe other cities have stuff as well. But October 8th, coming up, supporters of WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange in England will join hands to form a human chain surrounding Parliament in London. In solidarity, U.S.-based supporters will hold a rally at the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., calling on Attorney General Merrick Garland to drop the charges against Assange. So this is October 8th. The DC one is 12 to 3. I guess I don't know. I don't know if the London one is a different time. It very well might be, but they're definitely both in October 8th. And I highly recommend, if you can get to either of those, that you go and support Assange. Unfortunately, I'm performing in London, but I don't get there until a couple of days later. I wish I could be there then, but I'll be performing in London October 12th. If you want to come to that show, that's the tickets are at leecamp.com. But please, everybody, promote this. Let folks know. We have to keep the pressure on. As I was mentioning earlier, there should be statues to Julian Assange in every country, but especially in Britain and in the United States. He revealed he and WikiLeaks have revealed so much that is important to us, that we have learned from, that we've learned how our state, our nation works, how they behave in our name, not just war crimes, but he's revealed all kinds of oppression and attacks by various governments, not just the U.S. and Britain, governments around the world. He's revealed stuff about Russia, stuff about Peru, stuff about Australia, stuff about Israel, stuff about the UK and EU, the NATO countries, stuff about the United States, stuff about Canada. He and WikiLeaks revealed so much that we all need to know about our governments. And of course, a lot of what he revealed about the U.S. was straight up war crimes, and an understanding of their war crimes and acknowledgement. And clearly they're fine with it. So, and it's tough to obviously say the same thing for, 10 to 12 straight years, but Julian Assange should be free. And we need fucking statues to him. All right, folks, I'm going to continue at rumble.com/LeeCamp. So join me over there. And here we go. Got a few more stories for you.